I now ask you to turn your attention to both the screens where we're going to talk and introduce the speaker that we have today. Following this video, and this is going to be kind of a fun little video, we will then turn the time over to our honored guest, the Governor of Utah, Spencer Cox.
Chamber members, and honored guests, we are thrilled to have with us today our fabulous head of state, the Honorable Spencer J. Cox, the Governor of the state of Utah, who will address us in a few moments. However, as luck would have it, just days ago, South Valley Rotary received an unmarked, hermetically sealed package, dropped at the doorstep of President Steve. South Valley Rotary now knows this package contains unauthorized, unpublished, documents never before seen, regarding one Spencer J. Cox, the man, the myth, the legend. SVR has learned from reliable unnamed sources that for years the material we reveal today has been tucked away in the Granite Mountain record vaults in Middle Cottonwood Canyon, far from the prying eyes of the press or political opponents. However, these reliable unnamed sources, three men of the highest repute, tell us that former President Donald J. Trump leaked these documents to disparage our governor. Our sources believe this was done because the former president fears Mr. Cox, who manages the best-run state in the nation, may be positioning himself to make a bid for the White House in 2024. If the governor did so, Donald J.'s career is over. As Rotarians, we adhere to the highest ethical standards, so we can in good conscience sit on these bombshell documents. Today, we have breaking news before CNN can distort it, and Fox News does not report it. In sharing this material with each of you today, we follow the example of reputable journalistic icons such as Don Lemon of CNN, Rachel Maddow of MSNBC, and of course, Tucker Carlson of Fox News. Spencer J. Cox was born in the thriving metropolis of Fairview, Utah, a town tucked away in the central part of our state. The city's population is 1,438 people and 2,300,000 voters. Spencer J. was raised on a farm and attended North Sanpete High School, where he graduated the head of his class, because he was the only person in the class. After graduating, Spencer J. served a mission for his church. While on his mission, Elder Cox learned his high school sweetheart, the beautiful and intelligent Abby Palmer from Mount Pleasant, had decided to dump him for another man. Spencer J. pleaded, in a letter to his former North Sanpete classmate, to wait until he returned from his mission before giving him a Dear Spencer letter. It worked. However, SVR reveals the Dear Spencer letter that was never sent. Dear John, crossed out, Spencer, I regret to inform you that you have been eliminated from further consideration as Mr. Right. As you know, the competition is tough and you failed to make the cut. I wish I could say I wanted to remain friends. I don't. It's not me. It's you. Bye. P.S. I took the dog. He hates me. After winning the heart of Abby over the other man, Spencer left the dignified work of farming to become an attorney. Spencer did the typical underachiever things most people do. He was accepted to Harvard Law School but decided to go to Washington and Lee University Law School in the state of Virginia. Upon graduating, he returned to Utah and started his law career in Salt Lake City at Fabian and Clendenin, one of the best firms in the state. It wasn't long before Spencer J. was on track to become a partner in the firm. Then one day, it all changed when the Cox saw a bumper sticker that read, "It's 99% of the attorneys who give the other 1% a bad name." Spencer J. turned to Abby and asked a very Rotarian-like question, "Is the world a better place because of what I do here?" Being sensitive to her husband's delicate, fragile ego, Abby blurted out, "Absolutely not." Shortly afterward, the two returned to the rolling hills of their 150-acre family farm in Fairview. There, they raised their beautiful little family of 3 boys and 1 girl, teaching them the values of hard work, honesty, integrity, and character. Values learned daily on their working farm. Spencer J. found employment in Fairview running Centracom, a telecommunications company owned by his family since 1919. Under Spencer J.'s competent leadership, the business thrived. It was during this time, Spencer J.'s lifelong interest in politics took flight. Following in his father's footsteps, the young Spencer Cox served on the City Council of Fairview. Then he was elected as county commissioner, and finally elected to the Utah State Legislature. 9 months into his first term as a state representative, he was tapped by Governor Herbert and asked to be the lieutenant governor. Much has been made about the fact that during his term as lieutenant governor, Spencer J. drove to and from his Fairview home daily, a round trip of 200 miles. When asked by the press why he drove home daily, he said emphatically, "A father needs to be present in the lives of his children." Today, the documents obtained by SVR divulge how the former lieutenant governor computed daily to and from Fairview in only 30 minutes. He abused his power and state resources. Spencer J. ordered I-15 and Highway 89 shut down daily during his morning and evening rounds. He used his authority to sideline state troopers to avoid being pulled over for speeding. His average speed during his commute was over 200 miles per hour. How was he able to pull this off? Mr. Cox absconded Al Jenkins' famed race car, the Mormon Meteor. In a scandal surely to be dubbed Meteorgate, South Valley Rotary learned from the documents placed on President Steve's porch why the Mormon Meteor is no longer housed in the basement of the Utah State Capitol, its home for over 45 years. The Meteor is under hay in the governor's barn in Fairview. Some of you may be skeptical, thinking this is yet another baseless internet conspiracy notion. Well, we urge you naysayers to go to the suppository of all truth, the Elvis is a live website. Of course, by now, half of you, assembled here today, believe this video to be satire, and the other half are already posting hashtag Meteorgate to your Facebook pages. Our friends, what you have just seen and heard doesn't pass the four-way test, but it does pass the unofficial fifth tenet of the test. Is it fun? We like to have fun in Rotary while making the world a better place. Here is the truth about the Honorable Spencer J. Cox. We are blessed in this state to have a governor who brings pride and distinction to the office, who has the political courage to call balls and strikes as he sees them. A man who embodies family values, encourages community traditions, and treats everyone with dignity and respect. He is not only a farmer, a lawyer, and a successful businessman, but a son, husband, and father. Yes, he gave up being a partner in a major law firm to raise his family in a beautiful little community with a rich, wonderful history where people still know their neighbors by name. It is true he traveled to and from Fairview daily, driving a modest personal vehicle, putting on thousands of miles on the odometer at his own expense. And yes, he married way out of his league. Now you know the truth. Thank you, Governor, for your service and leadership. We look forward to hearing from you today. Ladies and gentlemen, chamber members, and Rotarians, please stand and give our 18th Governor of the state of Utah a warm Rotary welcome.
I don't even know what to say after that. That was incredible. My goodness. Yeah, I'm kind of speechless now. A lot of things in there you thought weren't true actually are. Like the bumper sticker piece, 100% true. Abby finding somebody else while I was on my mission, also true. The shutting down the freeway, none of that's true. So I did drive faster than I should have some days. I got pulled over a couple times, but it is so good to be with you. I'm so honored to be here. We've got about a half hour together, and I want to use our time wisely. I certainly want to hear from you, and that's part of why we're here today. I want to thank Steve and Jose and everybody who's been so kind and gracious in bringing me here today. But I have to talk about Rotary because it's so important to me. My staff last year said, what do you want to do? What kind of groups do you want to talk to? I said, I want to talk to Rotarians every chance we get. And they looked at me like, really? Rotarians? Like, is that still a thing? And I said, yeah, it's still a thing, and it needs to be a bigger thing. And I'll tell you why, and I mean this sincerely. So we've met with many Rotary groups across the state, and that four-way test, like, that's it. That's five-way test. That's it. Okay? It's the secret to everything. Imagine, if you would, if every politician, myself included, every time we had a decision to make or a press conference to hold or a tweet to send out, if we went through that four-way test, how different would our country be right now if Joe Biden did that, if Donald Trump did that, right? How different would it be if we all did that? But it's more than just that. So there's this book that you all need to read. Lots of books, but I think I'm only going to talk about one today. Yuval Levin. He's a brilliant researcher, writer for a think tank out of Washington, D.C., AEI. The American Enterprise Institute. Now, I know it's right-leaning, and if you're not right-leaning, it's okay. I promise this book will offend you, but it will offend all of us equally, right and left. It's called Time to Build. And the whole premise between Dr. Levin's, in Dr. Levin's book is that as a nation, the United States is unique and special, and I think we all believe that. I know I do. And one of the things that made us so special is that we are a society that is built on institutions. Government, of course, being one of those institutions, but not just government. There are many others that are so important. And in this book, he talks about lots of different institutions. He talks about the institution of higher education, the media as an institution. He talks about faith-based institutions as some of the most critical. He talks about the family as an institution. And he talks a lot about government. And he is worried, and I am worried, that our institutions are decaying and they're failing us. For a couple reasons. One, we've made mistakes in institutions before, and so people have lost trust in institutions. But two, because people are tearing institutions down. On both the right and left in different ways that he goes through in great measure and great detail. And how dangerous this is to the future of our country. If we're going to survive, we have to build up institutions, because institutions, like Rotary, okay, he talks a lot about Rotary, and service-based institutions and how important they were to our country. Institutions are only as good as the people that make them up. However, the idea was, and this is what was very unique to America, is we knew we were imperfect, and so we created institutions to bring us together and to hold us accountable, knowing that we would make mistakes. And so institutions all have certain, again, you have a four-way test, right? And you come here not because you're perfect, but because you want to be better. And you want to build community. And one of the reasons I wanted to speak to Rotarians is because I believe that you are the best and most important thing happening in our country. And I'm devastated that we're in such a small room right now, right? Because it didn't used to be the case. And again, these types of organizations and institutions like Rotary, Lions Club, service-based, faith-based, were huge and brought the best of the community. And it was something that people aspired to, young people aspired to, right? And sadly, now when we go, if there is even a Lions Club or an Elks Lodge or a Rotary Club, that our hair tends to be a little grayer, or we've lost it, right? We don't have as many young people involved, and our numbers have shrunk. And he believes that you are the secret to preserving and saving our country and the values that we hold dear. And it's because of the way that you reach out and you try to bring people together and you build up instead of tear down. I've come to the conclusion, really over the past couple months, that I've stopped viewing people on the political scale as far right or moderate or left or far left, whatever those are. I don't care about that anymore. I've started viewing people on a different scale. There are two types of people. There are builders and there are destroyers. And there are builders on the far right, people who are amazing, who care and want to build and solve problems and work together. And there are people on the far left who want to build and truly make our country and our communities better. And there are people on the far right who just want to destroy the other side and tear down. And there are people on the far left who just want to destroy the other side and tear down. Sadly, there are some institutions that have adopted kind of that mentality as well. The media being one of the main examples now. I'm reading a fascinating, I told you I was only going to talk about one book, but I started one this morning that I have to tell you about because I'm just a couple chapters in, but I think you all need to read it as well, even though I'm 2 chapters in. It's called Broken News. It just came out this week. It's by, what's his name? Charles Stierwald. You may remember, he was Fox News. He was one of their political reporters, but also he was on the news desk and the political desk. And they were the ones who make the call on an election. And the controversy came when he called Arizona for Joe Biden, and he actually got fired later on, even though it turned out he was right. But he's been in that media world forever. And he wrote this book about how broken the media is. But they've adopted that idea. The media, most media now, even mainstream media, has become much more destructive. Instead of building up institutions, they're about tearing institutions down. So I just want to thank you, and I just want to end with this, and then we'll open up to questions. The problem with our institutions failing, our churches, Rotary, all these institutions, is that our problems haven't gone away. In fact, our problems are maybe getting bigger. And so what happens when we have to solve problems? Where do people turn when there's no Rotary, when there's no church, when there's no local community organization to help solve those problems? They turn to me. They turn to government. And they want government to solve all of their problems. Now, I'm going to say something that may be a little controversial or you think will sound partisan. I assure you it is not. Like this guy who's writing about the media and how broken the media is, because he's been in the media, he can talk about this. I get to tell you that government was never designed to solve all of our problems. It's not. Now, I could say something partisan, like we have to have small government, and these communists on the left who are trying to grow government and have it ruin our lives and control every piece of it. I could say that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying government was not designed to solve all of our problems. It does it very poorly. It was designed to solve some of our problems, like protecting us from outside forces, like keeping bad people away from us, or punishing people who do bad. It's designed to help us build roads, because if you each had to build your own road to your house, that doesn't make much sense. Government's good at that thing. I mean, we're not perfect, but we're pretty good here in Utah. But it was not designed to do all those other things, right? When I ran my business, I'd wake up with a good idea in the morning, and by the end of the day, I could implement that good idea. I wake up with good ideas all of the time. And if I'm lucky, like 2 or 3 years from now, the legislature will implement some horribly messed up version of my idea that I had. And that's kind of how it works. And I'm here to tell you that is a good thing. That was by design. That was intentional. It was very intentional. Because as a nation, we knew that the best solutions, and by the way, they'll implement it and it will cost 5 times more than it should have cost, right? That's how government works. Government was designed to work that way. But when you reach out to your neighbors, when you come together as a community and you work to solve those problems, it's cheaper, it's much more meaningful, and it's much more lasting. And so if we, as conservatives, want smaller government, we need bigger people. We need people who really care. And those people tend to be Rotarians. So thank you for what you're doing. What questions you have? What do you want to talk about today? We've got about 15 minutes, please.
Thank you for coming, Governor.
Looks like we got a mic there.
Thank you, Governor. I came here with 2 friends in an electric car. The car was charged by my solar system, so we came free and we polluted 0 getting here. 80% of our inversion problem, I have read, is caused by internal combustion engines.
Yeah, tailpipes are about 50%, but when you add it all together, it's higher than that. Yeah.
So it's probably pretty easy to assume that we could deal with that inversion if we could get the conversion to electric vehicles more adopted by people in our state. Colorado, over a decade ago, took that initiative by making it creating incentives for people to go electric with their automobiles, go solar, and they did it by tax credits above and beyond the federal credits. So if we in Utah could do something like that, even though I hear what you say, government can't fix everything, it seems like that's something government could change the direction of the bus. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And thanks for driving an electric vehicle. I have to tell you, what's interesting is, and I've looked at the Colorado numbers, it had a tiny impact. the much bigger impact is happening right now, and it's the market that's really driving this. And I've talked to some people that actually make electric vehicles, some of the bigger companies, and they've all said the same thing. They said the incentives are great and kind of helpful. Really interesting, we just passed a huge federal incentive for electric vehicles, and I think it was about $7,000 to $8,000 per vehicle, and a whole bunch of companies decided to raise the price of their vehicles $7,000 to $8,000, which is kind of interesting. So again, markets and how this works. But what is changing, what is really changing, and I suspect it's the reason you're driving one, is that they're awesome. It's not just that they're the same thing, they're a better thing, right? It's not just that they pollute less, it's that I drove a Rivian the other day, and it was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds, something like that. It's awesome. And people like them, and they're getting cheaper, right? As more and more production is happening, that price is going to go down. Now the problem we have is being able to make enough of them, which is really interesting. So I just went out to Rio Tinto, Kennecott, and if you care about our climate and our air quality, we need a lot more mining. The problem is we are reliant on mostly China for so much of the components that go into that car. The critical minerals that are necessary to make the batteries and the solar panels and all of those things are produced elsewhere because we have them here. By the way, of the 32, 34 critical minerals that the United States has listed as important for all of these projects, Utah has 28 of them. And the federal government doesn't let us mine very many of them, right? Because they're on public lands by and large. So that's part of the conversation that's happening out there. We need to electrify. I'm all on board. But to do that, we've got to build a lot more transmission lines, and we have to build many, many more of these vehicles, and that takes a ton of copper and other critical minerals. So those are the things we're working on right now to help reduce the cost of those as well. What else? What else? Please. Oh, we got two here. Yeah.
So back in March, you guys passed a bill on mental health. That one where you've kind of tasked the Huntsman Mental Health Institute to come up with some ideas, right? So I have two parts to this question. First is kind of what are you hoping comes out of that? And the second one is what's the timing on that? Because I could never figure out, is there a deadline on that? Like, is there a date? Okay, we're gonna have it ready by this date. So those are my questions.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not sure about the date and the deadline. We can look on that, but we have been receiving information ideas, and there were several other bills that were passed as well. Mental health is one of the biggest challenges we're facing right now. I could spend the rest of our time just talking about this. I'm going to have some announcements in the next few weeks, specifically around mental health for our young people. Something happened in 2011 that should alarm all of us, and I'll share the charts and graphs with you another day. But all of our children, but especially young women, their rates of depression and anxiety skyrocketed. The number of young women that had been admitted to the hospital for self-harm, it looks like a hockey stick when you look at the graph. You know, here's 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, and it goes straight up like that. Young men, it goes up, but at a gentler curve. So, any guesses what really happened in 2011?
The iPhone.
Yeah, and what social media? Yeah, that's exactly.
Jonathan Haidt and Greg Luciano. Yeah.
I was on the phone with Jonathan Haidt last week, wow. And we're working on something together. So that's so stay tuned. But the other thing that we're doing right now, we are building these receiving centers, which are really important. We had a gap when it comes to help for people experiencing mental illness. We have like the state hospital where people who are very serious and at risk go for weeks at a time. And then we have, we have opportunities for counseling and other things. What we're missing is in the healthcare world, the equivalent of an urgent care, right? So, 1 in the morning, your kid's really sick or breaks an arm, you don't go to the emergency room, you take them to this urgent care, right? In the mental health world, they call it a 23-hour facility, somewhere where you can take somebody immediately, get them acute care, and get them stabilized and help them out. We don't have any of those in Utah. We're building a whole bunch of them right now. And that's going to make a big difference. So we're all in on mental health, more funding than we've ever had, and it's going to make a difference, and the new Huntsman Institute is helping us significantly. Thank you. Question back here.
First of all, thank you for your service. Utah's an amazing state to live in, so I want to, be grateful for everything that you've done. Yesterday I had a conversation with a gentleman that served 20 years serving the White House in business and has a $700 million project here. I asked him if he could talk to you directly. What message would he give to you? And he said, please ask if you could maintain the culture of Utah. In the business segment, to take a look at all the different aspects that we have, and to draw into the businesses that actually help grow this culture and create a concept and an idea moving forward and stick with it. So my question for you is, what part of your office is dedicated to that?
Yeah, so we had, it's interesting, we had so culture is kind of a broad word, and I'd love to hear what pieces of that culture are so important. But the speaker and the president and I, the speaker of the Utah House and the president of the Senate, we talk about this all the time. Like, how do we keep Utah with so many people moving in, right? I think that's kind of what we're referring to, right? And so there are lots of different pieces of that are so important. Now, I want to be very clear. Like, Utah has not cornered the market on being good. There are lots of amazing people that are coming here and bringing their ideas. In my State of the State speech this past year, which I know you all listened to and read, mostly just my mom, but she really liked it. So I said this. I said, look, for the first time, by the way, our external growth outpaced our internal growth. That's never happened since like 1847. That hasn't happened. I said, look, we're so glad you're coming. Bring the best of you and add it to what we have here. But please remember why you came, and don't try to turn us into where you came from, right? That's I think, what is so important. And so we're trying to distill this down. Part of this, I think, that's really important to me is the health and strength of parents and children and families. I think that's really core. And by the way, all of the data now coming out shows that the strength of families is we like to take credit as politicians for the good things that happen in Utah. And I know better. The truth is that it's, again, this foundation, this core foundation that has made Utah so strong and so wonderful. And so I created a new office. In fact, we're hiring this week a new director of an office of parents and children and family. And the whole purpose of that is to be intentional about the way we are protecting and enhancing families. And again, some people hear this and immediately recoil and say, oh, you just mean Mormon families with a mom and a dad and a bunch of kids. I do mean those families. I absolutely mean those families. But I also mean grandparents that are raising their kids, single moms, gay couples. I mean, how do we strengthen the core of families that are here in this state, all of them, and make sure that our kids are learning the right values, that are learning about the history of our country, that are learning about what it means to be a citizen of this country, and about civics, how our government system works, right? How do we do this? Because we need kids that understand. The value of work is really important to me, and I fear we've gotten away from that we're raising kids that don't know how to work. I don't know. Everybody I knew worked in college. Everybody I worked. I have a friend at BYU who said, we can't fill jobs on campuses anymore. And I'm like, that's weird. I mean, you mean like at the bookstore? He's like, well, I do mean at the bookstore. But I mean even the jobs that everybody wanted, like a research assistant or a teaching assistant. And I said, what is going on? And he said, well, I'll break it down for you. The liberal kids think government should pay for everything, and the conservative kids think their dad should pay for everything. And none of them want to work. So that concerns me. So these are the things, and I want to make sure that every law we pass doesn't hurt our families. I want somebody who's reviewing that every day. So those are some of the things we're trying to do to help maintain that culture and preserve it for future generations. Great question. Please. Oh, where are we going? So, sir, we've got so many, and I'll talk faster.
Yes, thank you for being here, Governor. Alzheimer's is, on a per capita basis, very, very big in Utah. Unfortunately, we only have 4 geriatricians in the entire state.
I didn't know that. Thank you.
Is there any thought of stimulating the growth of education for geriatricians in the state of Utah?
I just had my first thought about that just now, so thank you for planting that thought.
Talk to me.
Okay, let's talk. Yeah, seriously, we're facing what we call the silver tsunami, right? As our baby boomer generation is aging a little bit. What I can tell you is I'm very optimistic. I've been meeting with some drug manufacturers in the Bay Area, some that are manufacturing some drugs here. We are on the cusp of some of the biggest leaps in the science around drugs. The ability to deliver drugs specifically for, my dad has Parkinson's, for diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, past the blood-brain barrier, to deliver these very specific medications that literally could cure Alzheimer's. I think in the next 10 to 15 years, it's going to be amazing. But in the meantime, we need more. You're right, I had no idea we only had 4. Let's see what we can do to increase that. Thank you. Yes.
Water is a big issue. And, we build pipelines thousands of miles long to transport oil. Couldn't we do something like transporting water from the flood areas in the United States out here to the west where we need it, so Lake Powell will continue to rise instead of go down, and et cetera, et cetera?
The answer is yes, we can. That's a federal project. We've been meeting with our federal delegation, and they've had meetings where more and more states are interested in looking at what this looks like. I mean, think about it. By the way, drought happens. Drought is cyclical. Now, I don't know how long this drought is. Maybe it is changing so much that it's going to be a 50-year drought, 100-year, I don't know. But drought is cyclical, and so the Midwest has had drought. The East has had drought. A system of pipelines that is available and could be used when there is excess water in one part of the nation to get it to another part of the nation is something that every state should be interested in. Right now, of course, it's the Western United States. So these conversations aren't just with us, it's with Arizona, California, Nevada, Wyoming, Idaho. Could we work together on a potential pipeline? And so the answer is yes. Yeah, it's very much on the table. Now, that's a long-term thing. That's going to take time, but we have to be working on that right now, and we are. Great question. Who else we got? Right here, and then a whole bunch of people. We've got about 2 minutes.
Again, thank you for coming. I just wanted to thank you for selecting Joel Ferry. I think he will, knowing him personally, I think he'll do a great job for you.
My director of natural resources, by the way.
Right.
Just hired July 1st.
He came to our club and spoke to us. The other thing is the backpack funding.
Yeah.
I think that was going to go through, and you stopped it.
I didn't stop it, by the way.
Oh, okay.
It lost big.
Oh, did it?
It didn't even come close to passing.
Okay.
It lost by 50 votes in the House.
Okay, I'm wrong on that.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to.
But I think I can help it get passed. I'm working on it.
That'd be great.
I was opposed to it. I will tell you, not because I'm opposed to backpack funding, but because of the way it was structured and some other issues that I had. So I'm working right now. Met with the president yesterday to work on that specifically.
Well, you might just explain what backpack funding is.
Sure. So this is where educational funding follows the child. more. And so if a child does decide to go to a private school, they would be able to take some funding with them to the private school to get in there. So very controversial. We passed a vouchers bill, which is the same idea. Passed a vouchers bill 16, 17 years ago, and then there was a vote of the people who repealed it. Again, very controversial, but I think we can do it in a way that will be less controversial and actually get it done. So that's what I'm working on right now. Great question. Maybe one more? Yeah, please.
Governor, thank you so much for your compliments for Rotary and institutions like Rotary. How can we work more closely with you and your administration to help our society?
Well, you're doing it. This is how we work closer. You give me feedback and ideas, and we work on those together. I wonder if there's a more structured way to do it. Let me think through that, because I would be really interested in trying to figure that out, a way we can, again, build the institution. And I need to ask the same question: how can I better help you and support you to grow your ranks? Because it goes back to that culture piece. By the way, I mean, this is what we're talking about. This is the culture. Ben Sass refers to it as that Friday evening in a gym feeling. And maybe we'll end here. Most of you, judging by the hairlines here, will, like me, remember that when we were growing up, that Friday night when our high school basketball team played the crosstown, or in my case, the cross-county rival, right? It was those Manti Templars where I was from. That's really their mascot. Everybody showed up. Not just the people who had a kid playing, right? Everyone was there. The stands were packed. And it didn't matter if you were rich or poor. It didn't matter if you were black or white. All that mattered was you were a North Sanpete Hawk, or you were whatever you are, right? That feeling, and I think that's the culture piece, is hypercritical to our success as a nation. Fascinating study that just came out in Harvard, Raj Chetty, a researcher there. They were able to take Facebook data and look at some very interesting stuff. And I won't do it justice, but let me just tell you what they found. If you are a poor kid like me, who grew up with nothing, but you lived in a community, or you have friends in your community, people you associate with, that are of different incomes, economic status, the odds of you climbing out of poverty increase significantly. If you're surrounded by people that are just like you, that are all poor, the odds of you coming out are much slower. We have the highest upward mobility rates in the nation. Utah is number one. If you're born in poverty in Utah, you have a better chance of not ending up in poverty than anywhere else in the United States. We used to call that the American dream. I think that's still what it is. Maybe it's the Utah dream now, since we're one of the few that are still doing that. That's what it is at its core. It's that we take care of each other. We care about each other. We're in that gym together. We don't care if you're a Republican. We don't care if you're a Democrat. Right? We don't care what your religion is. All we care about is, are you a builder or a destroyer? and we need more builders. That's how we preserve our culture. That's how we keep our state, the great state that it is, and it's how we save our country. Rotarians, by definition, are builders. Thank you for building. Please keep up the good work, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.
Governor, that was informative and just fascinating, and I really wish that we had another hour or two with you. And